Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Taylor Alanis. City and health officials have confirmed the first case of COVID-19 coronavirus here in Nueces County. The announcement happening at a press conference held at City Hall this afternoon. Mayor Joe McComb saying the case is travel related. The update is tonight's top story.
The Corpus Christi Nueces County Public Health District reports that it received confirmation
El Departamento de Salud ya recibió
from the Center for Disease Control of the first case of the COVID-19 in Nueces County.
Mayor Joe McComb saying the man between the ages of 45 and 55 is healthy. He is on pain and fever medications and is expected to recover. Officials say for now he is being quarantined and closely monitored away from his family.
This individual traveled to Houston for a one-day business trip.
Esta persona viajó a la ciudad de Houston por visita de un día.
A few days after returning home, became ill.
Después de unos días de que regresó a su casa, se enfermó.
Started with a headache, a few days later, a cough and a fever.
Director of Public Health Annette Rodriguez saying his family is self-quarantining separate from him. Health district officials will be reaching out to people who may be at risk and may have come in contact with the man who tested positive. City officials saying there have been 51 COVID-19 tests administered by health districts and 22 tests commercially. They say 15 were collected from the health district yesterday and all 15 were negative. Mayor Joe McComb saying there is no shelter in place right now, but is reminding people to stay at home if you have to, encourages buying from local restaurants using drive-through pickup or delivery, social distancing, and of course good hygiene. Judge Barbara Canales saying to take care of yourself and take care of each other. In order to stay ahead of the virus,